Well, everyone has had setbacks in life. I'm sure you and I can name several. I know I can on one hand
Yeah.
or more. But the important thing is to learn how to springboard back into a routine or into something that's just a normalcy for you, whether it's been something very tragic or maybe just a minor setback. They always happen. And in today's Mental Health Monday, we are joined again by our friend Jim Hjort. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well. Thank you. How are you?
We are fine. Thank you for being here this morning. We've talked with you a couple times about the Right Life Project. That is kind of your baby that you work on. And, you know, being a licensed, I know that you're a licensed psychiatrist and you worked with people on a number of things. I'm sure people come to you and tell you about their setbacks all the time. And turning all that around can be difficult in a person's life.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm a licensed psychotherapist, by the way, so not a medical doctor. But yes, it's a common theme, of course, when people come to see you looking for help, that they've experienced some kind of setback, whether, a collection of minor ones from day to day or, as you mentioned, a major tragedy. And the important thing to remember is that, those are facts of life, that, no matter what we do, we won't have a perfectly uneventful life. So we need to approach our setbacks in the best way possible in order to make use of them and not really let them destroy us or put us off track.
That's hard, though.
Yes. It's easier said than done sometimes.
Absolutely.
But, the science on this is really clear, though. There are researchers who study what we call narrative identity, which is the way we compile our image of ourselves based upon the events of our lives. And there's one particular kind of life story that is most equated with high levels of well-being, and that's what's called a redemptive narrative. Mm-hmm. So a redemptive narrative is when things are going well and then they fall apart, and then there's a rebound that really incorporates the downfall into the recovery. And so you look back over your life and you have this story of triumphing over setbacks. And for people who can have that kind of life story and tell themselves that kind of life story, they're much happier and much better off in the long term.
Do you have any tips, I guess, for springing back and making that rebound? Because for some people it's easier than others, and some people grieve differently, some people think differently. So how would you suggest someone kind of rebounds into that redemptive narrative? Well,
one tip that I use with my clients is to imagine that your life is like a graph. Okay, your life story is like a graph. So there are ups and downs, just like a graph of, say, the stock market. And you can plot your life out on a piece of paper and just kind of chart. Here's the high points, here are the low points, etc. And in doing this, you can notice a couple of things. One is that there are never any straight lines, really, in a life story. No one has a perfectly straight flat line or straight up or straight down. There's always some jaggedness to it. And what that means then is that every time there's a downturn, that is also going to be followed by an upturn. Always. And if you plot your life, you can see that for yourself. Now, if you happen to be in the middle of what feels like an everlasting downturn, it feels like, geez, my graph is pointed straight down and it has felt like that forever, then what I recommend is to really zoom in and try to look for finer detail in that graph.
Well, and
so,
I know...
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I know that a lot of times that resilience can just show how strong of a person you are, or your resilience, just rebounding, and just knowing that a lot of that has meaning in our life when we go through these hard times, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of that is innate to us. Humans are innately resilient and able to overcome challenges. And then other aspects of that are things that we can do to support that resilience. And this this tip, this reviewing of the life story and amplifying those bounces or those rebounds is one of those things that we can do to enhance that innate resilience.
Mm-hmm. So creating your own meaning, we just need to learn from our mistakes, kind of like what our moms always would tell us, correct, Jim?
Right, exactly. And one example always comes to mind for me, which is that of John Walsh. He was the guy who started America's Most Wanted.
Right.
Now he was formerly a hotel developer, and then tragically his son was abducted and murdered, and he ended up recasting his entire life as a result of that horrible event, and used it to infuse his life with meaning, and he became a champion for abductees, and of course started America's Most Wanted, which is, in my opinion, one of the best pieces of TV ever. So,
well, and your advice is great. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow, friends.
Bye.